my advice to all of the small studios, solo developers, indie teams that are asking me, okay, what game should I make? And my answer is try to keep the scope down. Try to make a game with very few mechanics. Try to make a game that you're able to finish. I always say 6 months. I know it's not possible because I mean, when you start to polish, when you start to see things, I know it's not possible. But when I say that time frame, I'm saying it because the goal is trying to keep the scope down.
Okay, today I'm here with Fabio Cristi. 30
Hello,
years in
hello,
the,
Norman. Hello, everyone.
yep, he's been 30 years in the game industry. Started as a game journalist in the 90s, moved into production at 2008. He
2008.
worked
Yeah.
he worked with studios including Milestone and 505 Games, now independent, helping studios improve organization, pipelines, shipping, and building communities during development. And now currently working with Explored and Hoxfall for their Teburu platform.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Game Creators Framework, Fabio.
Thank you for inviting me, and I hope we will be able to have a very good conversation about, I mean, several of the topics that are, uh, I mean, very important in the current game industry, especially for indie teams.
I'm very excited for this conversation. And in that note, I would like to start asking you something related to something that only you might know because you've been so many years in the industry. And that would be like, in terms of production, is there
Yep.
anything you see that studios used to like do as a mistake in the past and they're still doing now after 10, 15 years?
I don't know if I can say it's related to production, but my feeling pretty much with every game I worked with and every game I'm talking to maybe friends who are working on it and so on, is that the final game always looks smaller than how the game was conceived at the beginning. So I would say that probably one of the major problems, in my opinion, is the scoping of the project. So you tend to scope, especially, I mean, when you have budget, you tend to scope very high, and then you are forced to scope down while going on with production because you make mistakes with estimation, you underestimate stuff. I mean, all of the problems that are typical of big budget projects. Because I mean, in my experience, I mean, when I was at Milestone and when I was at 505, it was the time in my life where I had the opportunity to work on multi-million budgets, I
Mhm.
mean, for projects, because I mean, after that, I just worked with indie teams and so on. And my experience is that, I mean, you were scoping the project for a certain budget, and then in the end, if you want to stay under that budget, you were forced to remove features because maybe something went longer, maybe you hadn't thought about certain dependencies and so on. So this is my, I mean, in, let's say, in big teams, in, of course, for indie teams, for small projects, there are so many different situations that, in my opinion, it's not possible to find a pattern because it depends on many different things, on many different point of views and all of
Yeah,
that.
but what you said is really interesting to me because it's exactly what I've seen. I don't have that many years working on this, but the scope seems to be not only in big projects, but I think in all levels. You see people starting with a small. I see it actually most in smaller teams, because they starting with their first games and they have this idea already. I want to make the my dream game from the beginning, and even if they start with a smaller scope, through the process they start getting more and more and more stuff, and even if they think, okay, I'm gonna keep it as short as possible, then they have, I don't know, a play test, and people tell them, oh, I really like this mechanic, and instead of thinking, yeah, that means the game is already proving that it's good enough, it's more like it could be so much more, and they start adding more and more to it, and then problems with the budget, everything. And I would say that's definitely a
I
production problem.
I taught game production for several years for an academy here in Italy, and one of the things I was saying to the people attending my lessons I mean, there was no production track inside that academy, but production lessons were made for all of the courses that the academy had. So I had students of programming, I had students of game design, of 3D art, of concept art.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I told them from the first moment was that, especially at the beginning, when there was no budget, when they were just a few students working and learning, their goal had to be keeping the scope down. Because
Mm-hmm.
what really matters in the beginning is that you finish the project and you put the project on your portfolio and on your track record, because all of the projects that are not finished, all of the projects that go nowhere after years and they're never released or never finished, they don't count in your
Yeah,
CV. They
of
don't count
course.
in your portfolio. It is
Mm-hmm.
something that, I mean, you can't go to a studio having an interview and say that and tell them, okay, I worked 3 years on this canceled project. Because I mean, you can't show them anything. I mean, I have several canceled projects I worked on in my life, but I can talk about them in CVs or something like that. I can't use them as a demonstration of my work. And this is even most important for, I mean, more important for coders or for game designers. Because I mean, artists can show some concept art, some artwork, some models for what they do.
True.
But for programmers and for designers, if it's not done and finished and released, it doesn't count. So this is why I always taught my students since 2017 that they had to keep the scope down. And this was the most important thing. And this is what I'm telling still now to indie people, to small teams, to all of the teams that want to do an indie game. This is something, I mean, when let's say when the taste of the gamer shifted after the AAA crisis, the live
Mm-hmm.
service game crisis, Concord, and all of that stuff,
Yeah.
and they started to like smaller games. My advice to all of the small studios, solo developers, indie teams that are asking me, okay, what game should I make? And my answer is try to keep the scope down. Try to make a game with very few mechanics. Try to make a game that you're able to finish. I always say 6 months. I know it's not possible because I mean, when you start to polish, when you start to see things, I know it's not possible. But when I say that time frame, I'm saying it because the goal is trying to keep the scope down. Because I mean, if you think professionals with so many years of experience, when they start to create stuff, they start adding features. So for people who have no experience or who have very few experience, it's very important that since the beginning they understand that they have to keep the scope of their project down.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, many projects that are becoming hits in the most recent months, in the latest months, show that you can create small games that are fun, that are
Yeah.
replayable, that are, I mean, that can generate lots of revenue, even being smaller.
Yeah.
Okay, I
I.
mean, I saw a post of yours related to Mech Chameleon,
Mhm.
and all of the things that you were saying were right because I mean they were professionals with lots of experience, lots of systems that were already developed for other games, and so on. But I think that the lesson a game like that can show is that okay, if you start small and you start design system and you start to have stuff, then maybe in 2 or 3 years you can be able to create something like this. I know several developers, for example. Let me do an example. I don't know if you ever heard about Clover Pit, which is a game.
No.
Was a game. It was released. It was, let's say, Balatro meets slot machines meets horror game.
Okay.
It's a game published, I think, by Future Friends. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who was the publisher, but it was, let's say, a game made after Balatro. So it was those games with the gambling mechanics
Yeah.
that were very, I mean, attractive and capturing for the player. That game sold, I think, more than 1 million copies on PC, and it was on Game Pass. It has recently been released on Switch 2 and PlayStation, and I think it will sell a lot more copies. But because already on PC, I don't know if it passed the 1 million copies, but I think it went very close. And it was made by a team here in Italy called Panic Arcade, who are
Mhm.
just two people.
Oh,
And one of them, I mean, started developing games when he was 18, and now it's 30 years old or something like that. And he was telling me that, I mean, he always survived game after game because he always developed small games. And then what he learned after each game allowed him to improve himself
of
and
course.
create better games. He never, I mean, he never had to do work for hire for other studios or something like that because he was able to recoup everything that he invested in his own games. And I mean,
Mm,
Clover Pit has been, let's say, the top of a career that started when he was, I mean, when he was 18. So after 10 years, he
of
was
course.
able to make a game that was a million seller. But it happened after so many small games. I mean, what he told me made me not really realize, but confirmed the fact
Confirm.
that you need to prepare small games because small game after small game, then maybe you will be able to do something bigger and something more, let's say, satisfying maybe for your tastes. But I mean, even a small game for a solo dev or an indie studio could give lots of satisfaction.
Yeah,
Could
that that makes me think about something I've been thinking a lot about right now, and it's that misconception when we talk about small games. A lot of people don't really understand what that means. I see that you tell a developer you have to make a small game. They're like, yeah, but then I have to change the target audience, and I need to change the even the platform or the venue, because if I'm gonna make a smaller game, then it might be just a phone game or something, a mobile game, And it's like you don't need to change the target audience. A small game doesn't mean that it's going to be it's first, it's not going to be a bad game that you're not going to polish at all, and second, it could be a smaller version of a game that you usually imagine as a big one, but just using the most important things of that game with the budget you can have in the shortest amount of time you can. That is what I consider to be really a short game, not something bad, not something without any flavor to
Yeah,
it.
small, not short, because I mean, a short game can be, let's say, a
Exactly,
30 minutes, 45
small.
minute game can be satisfying, but small game means that you can replay it for hours and hours. I mean, Vampire Survivors is a small game,
It's
but
more
it's a game
short
that has
scope.
an
Yeah,
incredible
it's a small scope.
replayability. Yeah, the scope is short. Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
small scope, short
but
scope, how do you want to call it? Yeah.
it also doesn't need to be super replayable to be a success. It just needs to be good enough
Yeah.
of an experience, because you have games like a short hike. You can play a short hike in 1 hour, and it's a success of a game. You enjoy that hour like it was one of the best. For me, it was a great hour of experience, and even though it was short, it's like perfect for. So
But I probably can say that a short hike has had a budget higher than most of the, let's say, friends love game that are
okay, yeah,
storming Steam right now and that are
true.
making very good business. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, that's why it's more like for what you have as budget, time, and yeah, and abilities. Because that's also another thing. A lot of people are like, I want to make my amazing game that has all these things that I have no idea how to do, but they do have a lot of great abilities already they can exploit in the beginning to make a game that it's actually doable for them, instead of thinking, no, I want to make a game, but I need 500,000 because I don't have the abilities. I need to hire everyone to do all of this from the beginning, when they still don't have the experience, they don't have the budget, anything to actually prove they can actually make a game like that. So I think all of these misconceptions, when we say you have to make a small game, they just think about those things, and then that doesn't really add up to what they're saying. So yeah. Well, now talking about something else. Um, Again, related to production, is there anything you've seen that has changed in terms of production in the last years? Like something that's completely different before and now has. I could
It's a
think of
very
one
difficult
thing maybe,
question.
but yeah.
No, it's a very difficult question. I can find the answer right now, so maybe a suggestion of yours
What about
can
have
be
you?
good for starting a discussion. Yeah.
Okay, okay. What do you think about AI? Do you think AI has changed anything in terms of production?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, AI changed a lot. I mean, not really for producers' jobs,
Hmm.
but I mean, probably for the speed you can use to program stuff, for the speed you can use to generate assets, and so on. I mean, I've seen a few programmers use it in a proper way because maybe it may help program faster certain routines and it may help
Hmm.
reaching the prototype stage quite quickly. But of course, after that, in my opinion, AI is not yet at its full capacity when it comes to produce polished code, when it comes to, I mean, create specific stuff that it's, I mean, still require very high skills from the programmers or something like that. So I think it's very useful for the prototype stage, but after
Hmm.
that, the hand of a programmer and the skills of a programmer are still very required.
Okay, I see. What I've seen, like adding up to that, is a bit that the bar has raised a little bit more because I mean there are a couple of things that AI is helping. It's not taking their jobs or anything. It's actually accelerating their development faster, right? Especially with prototyping. But this just makes it so games have to be better because now it's faster the development. So people that put more effort on using the tools, they can do things better, and people that usually didn't put that much effort already can do something that looked kind of good. So now it's just like you have to put you have. I feel like people understand when they see something made with AI that it is it no one put effort on it. It could look good, but you can see if it made like that, there was no effort on it. And there's kind of a value for the players even on that. When they see, oh, this game was made with love. They actually put effort on it. They put something into it. And I think that is also kind of affecting, but not really the production side, as you said. So yeah.
Yeah. Not really on the production side, because I mean, if I think about AI tools when it comes to my daily job, I can say that the only tools I'm using, I mean, I'm using AI just, for example, for creating acceptance criteria for stories or for, for helping me when it comes to create tasks from a design document or something like that. Because I
Okay.
mean, before AI, you have to read it very carefully, and sometime it was a very long task for the producer to be able to extract the proper information
Yeah.
and then create the task to distribute to the team. Now with AI, it makes this aspect faster. Of course, you need to check everything.
Heck,
You
of
need to
course.
understand. I mean that everything that has been found on the document has been understood correctly. But it makes the work faster, especially I mean at the beginning when you have this very big document and you have to start creating tasks for the team. So
True. And also for the team to understand it quicker, like to check to get the most important topics out of it and know what they have to do. Yeah. And
yeah, yeah.
that takes me to some other question related to that process. Do you think there's a big difference between the process of production a smaller team should do versus, let's say, a team that's around 30 people or more in terms of if they should use a similar methodology like Scrum or something like that, or you recommend it to be completely different?
I mean, in my experience, I've always used a mixture of waterfall and Scrum
Mm,
with all of the team. I mean, Scrum in my experience, it's easier to use Scrum with smaller team because and the greater a team is, the more you have to go, let's say, versus a waterfall style. Because it makes easier to respect deadlines, it makes easier to respect milestone and something like that.
mm,
With smaller team, maybe you have more time to experiment and maybe you can see the project grow sprint after sprint. With bigger team, but I have to say that I work with bigger team, as I told you, more than 10 years ago.
okay.
So at that time, Scrum wasn't so used as it is now,
Mhm.
even in AAA development and so. I mean, with my experience, I was the lead producer on a MotoGP game where I had 150 people
Mhm.
to work with between internal people and external people.
Yeah.
And we did some experiments using Agile, but at that time, for example, we were using Waterfall for the general project and Agile for some smaller features that required more control and more tracking. I don't know now because I mean after Milestone, I would say that the bigger project I worked on had the 25 people, and until 25 people, I'm very comfortable to using Scrum, to use
Mhm.
Agile, and all of that, and
Yeah.
trying to avoid waterfall if possible, of course. But I mean, my past experience, I was very comfortable with using waterfall, especially if the game had not so much experimentation. So pretty much you know what are the bricks that compose the game, the bricks that make up the game, and then you're pretty much know that okay, this is requiring 2 weeks, this is requiring 1 week, and all of that. But with small team now, I'm very comfortable. I'm very comfortable using Agile, using Scrum, doing
I'm
stand-ups, sprint meetings, and
amazing.
all of that.
I'm really glad to hear that because I've been having like mixed opinions about that. I heard some producers talking about it being better to have a complete agile methodology when you have a bigger team more than a smaller team. A smaller team should be able to just organize themselves. But I always thought the best way of organizing yourself is using something like an agile methodology where you start with a version of that and then through retrospectives through understanding the whole team itself, the team matures and understands how they can work together and then they can organize themselves, but not without any specific
I think
methodology.
I think I think it works from a theoretical point of view, but when you try it in practice, it will never work. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it could be a nightmare. I mean, if I ever wind up in a big studio, having let's say a 100 people team that works in Agile and maybe also uses Jira, so it's kind of a nightmare. I mean, I don't know how I would behave.
I see. I do have some ideas, maybe like separating the teams in smaller chunks, like that
Yeah,
Agile could
yeah.
work with, and then somehow connecting each one of them. But then you need kind of a lead on each one of the teams that knows a little bit
I
about the
mean, the
whole
bigger
project. You know?
the bigger is the team, the more lead and the more producers that you need to add. When I was working, I mean, for MotoGP, and so the team was big. Every project had its lead programmer, its lead artist. There was a head of artist. There was a head of programming. So there were many middle managers because I mean, it was not possible to have all of the people in all of the meetings and all around. So there were collector people that maybe the lead programmer was not really programming 8 hours a day, but he was managing the programmer 6 hours a day, and then 2 hours a day he was programming. But it was important that he was the one to transfer the knowledge to programmers. The lead artist was transferring the knowledge to artists, and so on. But I mean, what I felt was very good at that time was not really the classic division between departments, but the fact that, for example, we had a feature to develop that was requiring one programmer, one artist, and one designer.
Mhm.
And then we were creating a small group with these three people. The group had, let's say, person responsible of the feature. Maybe it was a programmer, maybe it was a designer. It depended on the feature. But this way, you were able to see the feature progress effectively, meeting after meeting, week after
Yeah.
week. Because there was a very specific control, and there was a very specific. It was evolving naturally, more naturally than in the classic way. I think Agile was unusable with the whole team, but in that way it became very powerful because it allowed us to produce very polished and very good features that probably would have been lost in the whole situation if we managed the team in whole in
You
Agile.
have
Yeah.
no idea how glad I am to hear that because it's something that I've been also thinking a lot lately. Like, I feel like the best way, especially if I were had to work with a very big team, is if you're going to separate in smaller teams, there should not be departments of only audio on one side, programmers on another, because then you have that big bottleneck of, oh, this team didn't finish their part, one or the other. But if you divide them in mechanics or specific parts of the game that they need
Yeah.
a mix of all of them, first of all, they're gonna work better. You're gonna finish the things, and there's also more serendipity happening in the whole team because they're different areas discussing together the same things, and they learn from each other as well in a way that they wouldn't if they're just focused on their own side. So yeah, amazing. And
I'm very happy to hear this.
yeah, that's I really been like thinking about it a lot. Like I think that's kind of the best way a bigger team could work. But I don't have that much experience in working with teams bigger than 30 people, so I have no idea
Yeah.
if my theories are that correct. But great. And then
Yeah. As I told you, as I told you, the last time I worked with such a big team was in 2013. And then after
Mhm.
2013, the highest team I worked with was a 25 people team
Mm,
spread between Mexico and Europe. They were working on a prototype of a game in Unreal 5. And
mm,
with them, there was a different problem that I'm encountering right now with a client I started to work with
mhm,
recently, and it's managing a project where you have people working in different time zones.
mm,
And it's a problem because, for example, it's very important that you have the, the, the highest number of overlapping hour possible. And until the time zone are distant, let's say 4 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, you have at least half a day of overlapping. When they are in a totally different continent, let's say with 8 or 9 hours of different, it's kind of a nightmare because you have just maybe 1 hour of overlapping at 5 p.m. in the evening. And then, of course, they have to be very independent because if they are not independent, and this is what was happening with that team, it's kind of a mess, and I find myself answering to messages at 10 p.m. because the people weren't finding tasks because the people weren't. So okay,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's something that happens.
Yeah, no, that's another kind of struggle. I've seen also teams that what they do is instead of having a daily, all of them together in a meeting, they record their dailies so everyone can see them through the day. And then they have other meetings, the most important ones where everyone in a different time zone and
Yeah,
at
yeah,
time, then they do the meeting like planning or something like that. That it's more important for them to discuss at the moment. But yeah, it's another kind of struggle. That's true. But it's nowadays how most teams I would say work. Like the last teams I work with are
yeah.
always having people all around the world. So yeah, that's something that I definitely
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to
it
take more
happened
into
to me.
consideration.
It happened to me quite a few times. Yeah, I also worked with an Arabic team recently.
Mhm.
They were mostly in Saudi, but they had some people from Brazil. So the time difference
Yeah,
between Saudi Arabia and Brazil was even higher than the one I had when I was working with Mexican people.
and you
But
were based in Italy.
how? Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've always been based in Italy. I never moved from Italy. I always worked from Italy.
Okay.
And no, the difference was bigger, but how they were solving this problem, since it was just two Brazilian guys in the team, he was adapting to the let's say to the time the office was working. So he wasn't starting at his 9 a.m. He was starting at his 6 a.m. and finishing, for example, at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
I see.
But of course, I mean, since he was the only, let's say, he was the only
Just one person.
foreign person, he adapted to the working times of the team.
Mm,
So it also depends maybe on the mix of people that you have, because if there are more people on the other part of the world, you try to adapt to their time. Of course, if there are more people in Europe than in the other part of
of
the
course.
world, I think that the best practice would be they adapting, or at least partially adapting to the European time zone. It doesn't mean that they have to start at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. in the morning, but for example, maybe they can start 2 hours earlier, and it can benefit them because they also finish 2 hours earlier. So, I
Yeah.
mean, if I would be able to start at 7 a.m. in the morning and finish at 3 p.m., and then after 3 p.m. going out and do my stuff, I mean, it would be, I mean, for the kind of person I am, it would be very good. Then maybe, of course,
I think.
everyone thinks about it in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I have another different example. Like I was working with a team that was half of the team in Mexico and the other half in
Okay.
Germany. But it, I would have thought, okay, let's try to keep the German kind of normal schedule of the day, and the Mexicans will have to, because I was also based in Germany, so we were a little bit more people
Yeah.
in Germany than in Mexico. But there was one big difference. Most of the people working in Germany were working half time, while the ones in Mexico were
Okay.
working full time. And that made us
This is
think
what this
it's
is one of the other problems,
exactly, it's better
because
that
especially, yeah,
the people that
sorry.
are working full time can be through their whole day in a better schedule than what the ones that were working half time had no problem. We could start later in the day, while they where in Mexico it was starting the day, and then it kind of worked out better. So yeah,
Yeah, this is the other problem, because especially with all of these indie teams, you have maybe just half of the people who are working full time, and the other half of the people who are consultant or freelancers like us, who just work 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day for that client. And of course, when you add even this complication to the fact that you have to match time zones, it becomes, I mean, quite an hell to organize everything. But I mean, my experience has taught me that it's possible to organize. It
yeah,
requires some compromise from both of the parts, of
of
course.
course, yeah. Then there's one thing that has nothing to do with this topic that I also wanted to talk with you about, and it's something you told me before we had this call when we were discussing about having it. And it's like you told me that, especially in your experience with Italian games, like studios, they don't completely understand how important it is to start building a community while you're developing the game. I want my
Yeah.
concrete question would be, what do you think is, why are they not understanding this? What do you think is the friction to start doing it? You know?
I mean, from my experience, I don't know if it's the same all over the world, because I mean, when I talk about indie teams, my experience is with Italian indie teams. When I'm talking about very small team, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people,
Mhm.
I think that the problem stems in the fact that most of these teams are composed by highly technical people who are very skilled when it comes to game making, but when it comes to, okay, I have to showcase my work, I have to make posts on social, I have to create short video content, I have to
Mm.
do all of that stuff, they are quite uncomfortable with that,
Yeah,
because I mean that they say, well, I want to make a game, I don't want to care about it, and then you explain them, no, you have to care about it, because if you don't care about it, no one will know about your game. And the problem, what I see, is that still very few teams are skilled when it comes to, okay, I need to start creating content from day zero or even before day zero to validate my idea and to start building a community. I mean, over 10
yeah,
team, maybe I talk to just 2 or 3 teams are able to start a project with that kind of planned activities and with that kind of mindset. The other, they start the project, maybe they create they reach a vertical slice stage, a prototype stage, a demo stage. They showcase the project to community events, to events where there is other people who play test the game. But then, I mean, you go to their Instagram, you go to their TikTok, and you see that they have 2 videos, 3 videos. You see that
Mhm.
there's no virtually no community, and how can they expect
Yeah.
to launch their game if they don't have that kind of community? The
Yeah.
short videos I'm doing right now, unfortunately, just in Italian, because as I mean, saying to you in a previous conversation, it's very difficult when you are outside an English speaking country to create a social account on TikTok and Instagram that's not geofenced and that, I mean, helps your content to be pushed internationally. So my
Yeah.
videos in Italian are doing quite good numbers because having, let's say, 12,000 views on a video that's talking about indie funding, in my opinion, it's a very good result because it's a very niche topic. But I think that I mean, I would love to do the same thing I'm doing in Italian also for international audience, for international indie teams, because in my opinion, helps them understanding how you have to create and you have to promote a game in the current market situation, because we don't know how it's going to last, but since it's lasting and since it's going on, in my opinion, we have to take every indie developer have to take advantage of it, because now it's this way. Maybe in 2 years it won't be this way. We
True.
don't know how
True.
what's going to happen. It's very difficult to forecast what's happening in 2 years,
Well,
since
you.
I mean pretty much every prediction that has been done in the past couple of weeks when in the past couple of years went nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. True. But then one thing, trying to find a solution to that problem, would you recommend them to add kind of the process of making all the community engagement and all the marketing to their production plan somehow?
Yeah, I would. I would. I would, because but the problem I see is that unfortunately, if you want to use a social in a proper way, you already have to be someone that has a social presence. So, and if you don't have the budget, it's very hard to hire someone that maybe helps you with creating short videos, that maybe
Yeah.
helps you creating
True.
posts on Reddit and on all of those social. So
Well,
it's
uh,
this is the problem, in my opinion.
yeah. Well, what I think that might be the, it's not a proven approach yet or anything, but it's what I think I might recommend is I think the average person or account takes about a year to actually start being really noticed around, right?
Well,
About a year. If you're constant, if you're very constant and you're publishing every time. So if I take that number just like an average, and you know that you're building a game that might take you about that time to be in the state when it's about to launch, if you start from the beginning of your development, already publishing, you're gonna start having no numbers. But after a year, you might have enough numbers to actually do something with that content, and every engagement you get, Discord, everything you can, with a game that's already in a state where you can start using the numbers for something. And
yeah,
then
it makes sense. It makes sense what you say in the way that I mean, posting constantly, do a lot of videos, do a lot of content. It's very important because I mean, for how these short video platform are working, so for how TikTok and Instagram are
mhm,
working, maybe you do 100 videos and then three of them go viral.
yeah,
They obtain thousands and thousands of views, and they help you obtain several hundreds of wish lists, because I mean,
mhm,
they are just a way to funnel people into your Discord, to
mhm,
funnel people into your Steam page, to create wish list followers and all of that.
yeah,
So I mean, it's not. I would say for I mean, I read so many newsletter when they talk about success cases of people who use the social media and influencers to promote their games. And sometimes there are, I mean, very successful games whose specific account maybe on TikTok they didn't reach 500 or 600 followers, but
Hmm.
they have, let's say, 3 or 4 videos who had 1 million views, 2 million views, 3 million views. Because I mean, those social work in a different way from
Yeah.
YouTube or from Facebook.
Mhm.
Because I mean, they're just a way to, okay, I saw this game, it's interesting, I want to wishlist it on Steam, and then when it's going to be released, I'm buying it. So there are so many funnel you can build. The problem I see is that there are many developers who don't understand how they can build some content for TikTok, for Instagram, or for YouTube.
Yeah, but that's
And
why.
one of the things I always try to explain to people is that one of the things that this kind of social media platform allow compared to the past. In the past, you need to have a very polished trailer, and
Mhm.
then the trailer was your ticket for the market.
Yeah.
This platform don't care about polished material. You need to showcase even what you are doing on that day on your editor and just see it if you think it's something funny, if
Yes.
you think it's something that can be interesting to your potential community. And it's very hard to explain this to these people because when you say this, okay, what the fuck? I mean, I don't understand why it interests to my community. But I mean, there are examples you can follow.
Yeah, yeah,
So why don't you do it? It requires 10 minutes of your time. So why don't you do it?
yeah. Well, there's one thing there. So, what I recommend, and the way I try to help studios with their production is to have at least one content day. One day where they
Yep.
only focus, even if it's just one person or a couple of people from the team, are making content. Why one separate day? Because I feel like content switching between one task and another kind of breaks their flow of work. You understand that, right? Like,
Yep.
imagine if during one day you say, okay, I'm going to spend the day building this mechanic, but in the middle you also have to work on your content, and so you start polishing some posts, and then your whole flow of the day is kind of disrupted because you were working on something that has nothing to do with the mechanic. So to avoid that, I think it's better to have one day where you're going to make all the where you're going to learn. Like use that time to learn because you don't know necessarily how to do anything on any social media. You're going to publish content and you're going to and you don't need to record. That's the only thing. You don't need to record or take the screenshots or whatever you're going to use that day. That can be done through the week. You're working on something, you take a screenshot of your code, or you make a small video of a mechanic, or you're testing the game. You record yourself playing the game, and even if it's with a bug, that's funny. Somebody might like it. And then you take all that content and also ask the people in Discord to make some content out of it. Because people that's I'm kind of going through many ideas at the same time, but I don't want to miss any of them.
No, no,
So
but well, I can say that there are
yeah,
so many success cases right now
yeah,
that any team can use as an example. Then say, okay, how this game has been able to reach so many wish lists.
yeah.
You find that you go to their account on TikTok, you go to their
They're
account on
just
Instagram, and
polishing
see what
everything.
are the contents. What are the contents that have the higher number of views? Because I mean, the number of views is public. So if you know that the game has been able to obtain 300,000 wish list from TikTok, you go to their TikTok, you see their videos, and try to understand what are the features and the characteristics of those videos.
And,
I
and
mean, you don't have to clone them, but you can try to adapt them
of
to your
course.
game and to what you
And
need.
why people like this? Because they feel part of the development of the game. I feel like that's one of the biggest things. They feel like if they're engaging in Discord and you tell them, can you make a video of yourself playing? It's like, oh my god, I'm gonna be featured on their site playing their game while it's not
This
even
changed.
finished. They love that.
This changed a lot from the past because in the past the audience didn't want to be so engaged with the community. I think it's something. I mean, in my opinion, it's like a response to the fact that AAA gaming started to lose
Crumble
lose
and
steam
change.
and started to lose people. So I
Yeah.
think it's a response to that. So people want to be much more involved in the development of the game they want to play. because the game that the $80, $90 games that are buying are mostly let's say mandated not by designers or creative, but are mandated by businessmen and all of
Yeah,
that. So probably it's
exactly.
a response to that situation.
Yeah, and that brings me to one conclusion that I think is a conclusion it kind of takes everything into consideration. Is that when you're making a game, you might have an idea that you think it's yours, and it's like, I want to make this game, but you have to remember you're making a game for the people, for the
Yeah.
players. And if you take that into consideration in every single part of your process, you understand that you need to show to the players what you're doing. You need to get feedback from them. You need to make mechanics and get and answer the players what they want, what you see they like, not only what's in your head. And that also includes content. You're making content because you're making this for the players. You're not making it just for yourself.
Yeah, regarding what you're saying, this is one of the, let's say, one of the topics that I discussed a lot with the students when I was teaching game production, and that I discuss a lot with some solo devs or some indie studios. When they tell me, "Well, I want to make a game I like," and my answer to that is, okay, there are, I mean, many other players like you that can enjoy that game and that can allow you to live off that game. Or there are very few players, and then if you do a game you just like, then this game is not selling because, I mean, it's just like by you. Because the example I do is, I mean, if I was a game maker and I'm doing the games that I like, my games probably would sell 10 copies because I have very particular taste in gaming and all of that. So when I say that you have to make a game for the players, I'm not saying because it has to be an algorithmic production like, Netflix does the movies because they have to contain 20% of comedy, 20% of thriller, and so on. But you have to understand how big your audience is, and considering the budget you can spend and the time you can work on that game, considering that if you can live off that game, or I mean, the audience is too small and it makes sense to do something else.
Yeah, I think it's a balance, and it's a problem that in any art industry, people have this problem of how much it should be something that I like, so much it should be something commercial. And the balance comes when you have your idea that you like, you go with that idea, but then as soon as you have something, you test it with the people that are actually going to experience it, and then you have to modify it, combine your idea with that, and then you're going to have the ultimate art, the one that actually sells, that you like, and allows you to live out of your art and continue doing these things.
I mean, people more experienced than me were teaching. I mean, when I started working in production, was that you have to try to avoid falling in love with the projects you work on, because you always have to see the product from the eyes of a customer and from the eyes of a player. You don't have to be enamored of your feature, of your ideas, because maybe you like them, but the player doesn't like them. So you have always to try seeing the product when you play it through the eyes of the customer, through the eyes of the audience. Because, I mean, they are the final destination of your project, and they are the ones that, if they like it, will allow you to do another project like that.
And
Because,
then
I mean,
maybe once you are sustainable enough, you might be able to do this passion project you
yeah,
have in your head, and you can fall in love with
but
it
you
if
have
you
to be
want. And
sustainable. Yeah,
but yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think
that's
that's
it.
a great conclusion for this podcast right now. So
Yeah.
yeah, because we're running out of time now. So Fabio, thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to add or
Thank you.
to
No?
say to conclude?
Let me think, because we covered pretty much all of the topics. So we talked about production, we talked about marketing, we talked about how the market has changed and how it's helping, let's say, small studios come from. I mean, I would finish this podcast with one concept, it's something I treated in one of my Italian videos. I mean, when I do Italian videos, I also do the videos in English, but unfortunately, TikTok is not pushing them. So, I mean, when there will be a way to showcase the videos more easily, I will showcase the international videos more easily. But one of the topics I discussed in the last few weeks to the people who were asking me, do you think we need a publisher? Do you think, I mean, when we do these small games, do you think we need a publisher? Do you think we have to look for a publisher? And I told them that the current situation of publishers is that they don't want to invest money because they had so many issues, so many problems with selecting projects in the past few years that now they are very careful when it comes to investing money. And the fact that what I mean gives me hope is that the small team who are having lots of success right now, such as Poncol, such as Inner Sloth, such as other small teams, are becoming the publishers of the future. So maybe teams that have become famous and popular with a small game, with a short game, with a small scoped game, as we were talking at the
Yeah.
beginning, they maybe will be the publishers of the future that will publish that with their experience with creating small games, they will be able to make other small game successes. And so this gives me hope for the future, and I hope that the next generation of publishers comes from this team.
Amazing, because then that means that the studios need to anyways aim for finishing their games without
Yeah,
anyone helping them,
with or
and
without
then
that. Yeah,
that might give them the help they need, but they need to first focus on, regardless of what, finish your game with what you have.
it's finishing the project. Yeah,
Yeah, amazing.
finishing the project sooner than later, release it, and then move to another game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, thank you again, Fabio. You can find Fabio on
Thanks a
LinkedIn,
lot,
Fabio
Arman.
Cristi. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And hopefully in the future, when I'll be able to share my international TikTok account and so on, you will find me also there.
stay tuned for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.